Okay, welcome everybody, welcome members. I'll just start off chairing the meeting, obviously, until you formally appoint your chair. There are no apologies for absence. So item 2, declarations of interest. Can I check if anybody has any declarations they'd like to make?
No.
Nope, don't think any declarations.
No. Okay, thank you. Item 3 is recess powers. And it's just committee's asked to note that no recess powers were exercised during the recess. So I'll take you on to item 4, which is appointment of chair, and ask for nominations, please.
I'll start by nominating Councillor Michael Green, please. He's had experience in the past of doing this work.
Okay, and do we have a seconder?
Yeah.
Is that Councillor Oldham there? Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, and just check there are no other nominations. So you're appointed, Councillor Green. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate a great honour to be back as the Nairnshire Chair. I would also like to nominate for the position of Deputy. I'd like to nominate Councillor Paul Oldham, and I'd look for a seconder.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. We'll now move on to Provost. It gives me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Fraser, who's done a tremendous job over the last few years, and hopefully he'll be willing to accept the position of Provost. So on that basis, I'm delighted to nominate Councillor Fraser.
Thank you.
Have I a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Oldham. Okay, we'll move on to the appointment to subcommittee working groups. Now, there's being a member of a group always brings the possibility of a conflict of interest, and it could leave a councillor in a position of being unable to act when he is most required to by the group. So on that basis, I'm putting forward that we do not have any formal membership of these outside subcommittees working groups, and that we attend as and when required or requested. So if I could get some comment on that, or if you're happy to go with that, I would look for a seconder.
I'm happy to go with that. I think we'll probably still end up on 1 or 2 boards,
well,
school
yes.
boards, but no, I'm quite happy to agree with that.
Right. Okay. However, there is, as I've been advised by legal, that we have, as a result of community interests, it's important that we have at least one member on the Nairn and Nairnshire Community Partnership. So on that basis, is there anybody who wishes to be our representative on the Nairn and Nairnshire Community Partnership?
You're mute, Councillor Jarvie.
Are there any nominations, or does anybody wish to serve?
Councillor Jarvie is trying to speak, but she's mute.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Sorry. I'd be quite happy to do it.
Okay, I'd be delighted to propose you, and if I could get a seconder.
I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Jarvie, for agreeing to do that. The same principle applies to outside bodies. Again, we feel the conflict of interest could prejudice us being most effective on behalf of the said outside body. However, we are the riparian owners of River Nairn, and it's essential that we are on it. So, on the basis that we need 2 members for the Nairn District Salmon Fisheries Board, I would like to nominate Councillor Fraser as one of the members.
Thank you. Accepted.
I need a seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvie. I would also look for a second member. Are there any nominations? Does anybody wish to serve on the board?
I don't mind.
Okay, Councillor Jarvie.
I'll second.
I'll propose Councillor Jarvie, and you'll second it. Thank you for that. And again, Councillors Fraser and Jarvie, thank you for agreeing to step forward. We'll now hand over to a report from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Area Committee Performance Report.
Morning Chair, morning members. My name's Roddy Chapman from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and I'm Station Commander for Nairn, Badenoch and Strathspey, and I'm currently based in Aviemore. Thank you today for inviting me along to update you on the local key priorities as identified in the Nairn Area Committee Plan and as detailed on the second page of the performance report. If I can refer you to the performance report on the third page, headed All Accidental Dwelling Fires, you will notice that the figure has increased from previous years to a 5-year high, with 14 incidents of this type being recorded, and 5 actually for the reporting quarter that we're talking about there in Q4. This, however, is not considered a localised trend, as these incidents can be attributed to various causes. For instance, fire spread to a residential caravan, couple of improper cooking practices, and a domestic appliance, basically a wood burning stove with improper storage of combustible materials around it. There have been no fire fatalities in Q4, as illustrated on page 4, and page 5 also reporting we've had 0 fire casualties, which is obviously welcomed. Our local managers and crews are committed to keeping these figures as low as possible and continue to offer home fire safety visits in partnership with other agencies, particularly targeting those that are high risk. As mentioned at previous area committee meetings, we continue to undertake post-domestic incident response activities as a means of generating these home fire safety visits and raising fire safety awareness after incidents in the community, and to show visible support for those affected by these incidents. The figures for deliberate fire, are detailed on page 6, has reduced on the previous years, with Q4 showing 0 recording incidents of this type, which is now a 5-year low. If we move on to special services, the figures on page 7 relate to special service RTCs and show a reduction against the previous 2 quarters. The number of incidents of this type continue to remain low, which is encouraging. With traffic levels back to normal levels, with the easing of COVID travel restrictions and staff returning to their workplaces, we will continue to work with partners to educate the public on road safety matters. Again, if we progress through the report and move on to unwanted fire alarm signals, the figures for these alarms are lower than the same period in previous years, which is encouraging as we return to the workplace after the easing of COVID working restrictions. Prevention and protection have now recommenced legislative auditing of non-domestic premises and will continue to work with businesses to reduce unwanted fire alarms. The local managers regularly engage with premises and business owners to continue to try and prevent these incidents occurring in the first instance. Finally, if we move on to station availability, page 10 shows the station availability and their current strengths of personnel. These figures again reflect the fantastic commitment of the Nairn on-call staff. I will, however, continue to engage with local managers to ensure we maintain this level and look for improvements where we can manage to do that. Many thanks for your attention and time, and if you have any questions now, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, I've got a few points I would like to ask, and then I'll come to Councillor Oldham. 3 points. Under false alarms, I imagine that must be quite concerning and quite stressful. Are these malicious? Are they on purpose, or is it just mistakes that people make? And have there been any prosecutions, or how seriously are these viewed?
Oh, they're viewed very seriously, and obviously we will respond to them as if they were a person phoning in, as in to alert us to a call there. They're automated systems, and they usually go through an alarm receiving centre. So it's just an automated process in a commercial premises. Say, for instance, if we look at one of the ones which Nairn will respond to quite often, and probably the most frequent one that they will attend in relation to unwanted fire alarm systems, is Regmore Hospital. So there'll be, it's a lot of, because it's a high-rise property there, we've got our PDA, predetermined attendance, which stipulates you need a certain number of appliances, because Nairn is one of the closer stations, they're part of that mobilisation. In relation to how we respond to those from a legal perspective, we look at engagement in the first instance, and through our prevention and protection department there are certain trigger levels which will initiate a certain course of response. Again, within the Nairn area there, there's nothing that hits the triggers for us to kind of move in through a formal process. Again, if there is any actual automatic fire alarms that lead to a fire, our Prevention and Protection Department will undertake a post-fire audit as a matter of course. So if there does turn out to be a fire, rather than just a false alarm, we will actually audit them through the Fire Scotland Act and take measures to make sure that whatever caused the fire is removed, or sorry, eliminated as best we can.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. I've one other point. The availability of the second appliance is under 70%. Is that some sort of, should that be an area of concern, or what's the reason for that? Is there some sort of long-term maintenance, or why?
No, it's due to availability of staff. It's trying to, a lot of the firefighters there, when they, I'll give you for instance, last month there, Nairn had 60 shouts. I know we're talking about a previous reporting period here, but Nairn had 60 shouts in the month, a lot of them going jobs. So not just a turnout, not an unwanted fire alarm system. So you may find through their primary employment, when they give up their time there, they're owing that hours back to their employer. So they've got to, make themselves unavailable to balance that time. It's also due to annual leave and people trying to maintain a suitable work-life balance. As I talked about there, it is a very busy retained station. They're averaging a shout a day. So every day the pager's going off, they're getting taken away from their family or taken away from their primary employment there. So it is to do with balance and all that. There is a couple instances, sorry, it's not all that aspect of it. There is a couple instances of contractual non-appliance which has been managed.
What is that? Sorry, what's
people? So within the station themselves, you'll have people that are contracted to. It's a 75% or 100% contract. So 90 hours a week they make themselves available, or 120 hours a week. There's a station profile that's created so that everyone has their own circumstances. So some will provide evening cover and weekend cover. Some will provide daytime cover. On those that are to provide daytime cover, depending on their primary employment, if they're self-employed, they may have been taken out of the village or out of the town for work, and so they're not available. So we address it through that, and we look to see if it's a permanent or temporary fix and what we can do to manage that. But yes, it's something that we're trying to work on and improve so that we can ideally get 100% availability for both appliances.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that. It explains that. Councillor Oldham.
Yeah, just following on from that, really. I noticed you've got 19 members of staff at the moment. Are you happy with that level, or are you looking to recruit more?
We're recruiting currently just now. We've got one person in the recruitment process who is awaiting a task and task management course, their initial training course. But yes, we're still recruiting. Again, going back onto Councillor Green's point, I have several applicants who can provide evening and weekends cover, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for daytime cover just now. So it's about balancing all that. We need to take folk on that it works for both parties. They can provide the cover that works for me within the station, and it also works with them in their employment location. So we're still recruiting, but we're actually very specific in what we're looking for, which limits the kind of number of applicants that we can have, because there's a number of folk who are available evenings and weekends within the town, but they work in Inverness, which is really unsuitable for myself just now.
Grand, thank you.
Thank you. Just one last comment, and thank you for your report. You've only one female. Is there any plans to actively recruit more or to target more females?
Yes, we have a positive engagement campaign which Hannah on the Nairn station was involved in promoting that. To be honest, I haven't had a female applicant for a number of years who have come forward at all. I don't know why. Speaking to Hannah and looking to her if she can target in her peers, her colleagues, her friends, but they're just over the last week while there hasn't been any interest, unfortunately. But yes, we're actively seeking.
Okay, that's super. Is there any other comments that anybody wishes to make? Councillor Jarvie, Councillor Fraser.
Yes, thank you for your report. Really interesting. Could we have details how the school driving initiative is going to be rolled out? That sounds really promising and a brilliant idea.
What we do is we will look to engage with the school in Nairn and target the 16 and 17-year-olds, so 5 and 6. And what it is a virtual programme that runs through everything, and it's more than just the kind of dark side of things from our perspective. Our intervention at collisions and RTCs like that, the police tie in and the mechanics tie in, so it gives a wee bit of update on just the kind of whole process of driving and things involved. So that's set up through our P&P department when availability allows, and obviously getting access into schools. So there is a programme in place. The dates I'm not 100% sure of just yet because it's out with my department that runs it, but it'll be, I'd imagine, into the new school year.
Okay, that's great. And is it just going to target kids that are showing an interest in driving, or are you targeting all kids? Because obviously they're all going to be passengers at some point as well that can contribute to accidents.
We look to capture everyone who is of an age of getting a licence. So, and it does tie into your kind of safety as a passenger, and it does touch on that, not getting into vehicles if you believe that it's unsafe. So it does tackle both driving and passengers, yes, and to all.
Thank you. That sounds great. And the only other query, I don't know if it's covered in your report, perhaps not, was where there's been a fire where it's burnt at the side of the railway on the B9091, just as you come into that junction at Codder Road on the banking. Was that an accidental?
Yes, it will be. I think if you look at the report, there is no deliberate fires, so I would consider that to be accidental. Sorry, without having to kind of dig back through our reports, I wouldn't be able to get the information to you straight away quickly. But the fact is, there's no class as deliberate fires for the reporting period. I would suggest obviously it would be accidental.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that, and thank you for your report. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you. So if there's no other comments, well, thank you for that, and we'll move on to item 9, which is the winter service plan. I believe Mr. Porteous is doing that. Okay.
Hi, councillors. Yeah, I made it. How you doing? Nice to see.
Yes, nice to see you again. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks very much. So this is the winter road service plan for 2022-23, our upcoming winter. So we usually try to bring it to committee at this time with plenty of time in advance of winter. Rather than read through the whole report, just basically summarise it. It includes in the appendix a copy of the Highland Council winter maintenance policy. It includes also in the appendix 2 maps showing how the Nairnshire roads are prioritised in terms of primary routes coloured red and secondary routes in blue, and all other roads in black. And so the policy details the target treatment times for these routes, and the report itself describes the resources that are available to us for Nairnshire, and in terms of labour and plant and materials by way of salt, and it describes the day-to-day operations through the winter, how that starts basically with receiving the weather forecast and the decision-making process in deciding the action required for that evening and the following morning. And that happens day in, day out for the 6 months of winter, basically from the middle of October to the middle of April, usually. And also, in addition to that, obviously the 24-hour cover, duty officer cover continues throughout the winter as well as the summer. And that's for reactions to call-out requests, which could be anything from, storm debris on the road, wind-blown trees over the road, localised flooding or ponding, or road accidents, clearing up after road accidents, helping with diversions, that type of thing. And just a reminder in the policy there that the council winter maintenance cover on the council road network is not 24-hour. It's from 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening, but on primary routes it's from 6 in the evening as well up to 9 o'clock at night. So that probably summarises most of what's contained in the report. So if that's okay, Chair, I'll just invite questions from members.
Okay, I'll open that up. Councillor Oldham.
Yeah, I've got some suggestions I think I'll share with people before for changes to the gritting programme locally. If you want to look up page 25, map on there, and I think I'm going to just share my screen if this is going to work for us. Just give me a second while I try and make this magic happen. So this is the area, if you look at the map on page 25, this is the area on the very top right-hand corner. This is essentially what's referred to locally as the Lockroy estate. Now this is the programme currently. The roads marked in blue are secondary gritting routes, and the ones marked in green are the others, which are the ones that are done last. Now this has obviously not been revised for a while, and I think we need some changes to it. Nothing very major, but if I just go through and explain what I'm thinking about, the general reason why routes are blue, one of the reasons why routes are blue, is because they're routes for service buses. Now, since this was developed, this area, this road here, Montgomery Drive, has been extended, and the service bus for Service 11 now takes this route through the estate. This is also the route taken by the Nairn Academy bus, I think, possibly the primary school bus. So we've got two buses now running through the day from quite early in the morning to quite late at night. I'm suggesting that this all be upgraded to secondary. Now, to compensate for this a little bit, this area here, this is Lyle Road, Osprey Crescent and Suitors Park. They're currently marked as secondary because historically the Service 20 used that route. That's no longer the case, so I think we could safely downgrade those to other. The final thing is there's a whole slew of roads up here at the top end of the estate. Now, I suspect these are actually being gritted. The map doesn't reflect that, and the policy is that all residential roads are gritted in the other category. So I'd like to suggest we add those to the other like that. I've spoken to Richard about this before the meeting, and he's happy for these changes to be implemented. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Any members got any questions before I unshare this?
No, I'm standing amazed at your technical prowess there and getting that map up. Gee whiz, well done. No, that seems eminently sensible, and if Mr. Porteous is amenable to that, then and you've agreed that, then happy to support that. Absolutely. Yes, well done. A good piece of work. So, any comments from anybody else? Okay, you can remove that now, Councillor Oldham. We'll go back. I'll open up the discussion. Councillor Jarvie, Councillor Fraser, have you any comments to make? Councillor Fraser?
No, nothing. That's fine. Main report. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Oldham, you.
Yeah, sorry, I have one other question for Richard, which is in item 14 on page 17, talk about community self-help, and how this is coordinated to the community councils. I just wondered when we last wrote to the community councils about this.
That's a good question.
Whether it's worth writing to them again.
Yes, yeah, it may well be. It would have been something that was issued centrally, so I'll ask that question, and if it needs to be refreshed, then we'll do that.
Great, thank you.
No problem at all.
Okay, Mr. Porteous, thank you for that. That's a good report. And on that basis, unless Councillor Jarvie's any other points to make, no, then I would ask the committee to approve the winter service plan and note in point 2 the COVID-19 and drivers' hours regulations. So on that basis, thank you.
Thanks, Chairman, members.
Thank you.
Okay, we move forward now to Nairn Common Good Fund. There's an awful lot to discuss here, but I would just say at the beginning that going forward, the Nairn Common Good Fund is going to play an increasingly important part in the lives of the people of Nairn. And as such, it is of vital importance that they must be more involved in the decision-making process. Therefore, I am delighted that we will be setting up a pilot scheme to achieve just that aim. The creation of an advisory or reference group for the Nairn Common Good Fund is one of the top priorities, and I look forward to bringing this back to the Nairnshire Committee in due course. So, there's quite a lot to go through here first. So we'll start with 10A, the Grant Street workshops. Now, as I can see, we've been presented with 4 options. That's sale, lease, lease as well as sale, or do nothing. So on that basis, with the options in front of us, I would open it up and get comments from my fellow councillors. Councillor Fraser, if we start with you.
You had a quick read of this. I know we're not bringing in a lot of money if we lease it. I personally prefer to lease it. Thought long and hard about this, but if you sell it and it turns into a house, all right, you get one payment, and at the end of the day, you get another house, and it'll probably end up Airbnb because of the location down there, which doesn't really help our community. And there is, I've learned through planning, a shortage of small yards. I think it's a possibility that someone could take this on and improve it, and at least it's kept under our control. So even though I know it's at this stage there's not a lot of money involved on a ground lease, I would actually think that we might be better just putting this out for lease and let someone take it over and improve it. If it goes to default, we get it back. We get whatever on the land back. What's on the land we get back. If we sell, the only thing is you decide if you're going to sell, then are you going to allow a house in it? In which case you'd have to mark it as suitable for a house. And I think under rules we're supposed to offer this to housing first. And I'm not sure if that's gone to housing. So at the moment I'm not going on the premises. This is just a site for commercial use only. So in reality, to protect Nairn as small businesses, I would go for a lease at this stage. Okay.
Right, Councillor Fraser, I tend to agree with you. I think it's sound business practice to lease and get some income while retaining the asset. So like you, I'm very keen to actually lease it and not sell it. Councillor Jarvie.
I agree. I think we should protect it as an asset, and I really don't think we would get value for money just now going for sale. And there's concern in the comments about it being primarily sort of put up for option for sale rather than exploring other avenues. I don't think the full potential has been displayed too well. For lease, I would like to see the place cleared of all those trees. You can't actually see the size, and it's not like people can look in because of the high walls. It's a really secluded area. It's got high walls, it's gated, and there's lots of options for lease and ideas. And there's also the idea of the community garden, which maybe could be explored as well amongst people. But if it was going up for lease or the sale option, I think a drone shot would be a fairer shot of it. I really don't think the photographs did it justice. They were really overgrown and didn't allow a clear mind to see the potential that place has got. But I would not be keen to sell it at all. Retain and make money off it.
I think Councillor Fraser made a sensible suggestion there when he said that there's the possibility that the incoming tenant, if we are successful in leasing it, the incoming tenant may well carry out improvements which would address many of the issues that Councillor Jarvie you've raised. So we're currently for leasing. I'll come to Councillor Oldham at the thin end of the wedge at the moment. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Yeah, it's funny enough, I'd like to thank Sarah for the report before I begin, but funny enough, before I listened to the three of you, I was in favour of selling this on simple economic basis, because if you look at the rent, it will bring in, compared to money we have on the sale, the return is over a considerable number of years. We're looking at 30 years before we were starting to lose out on this. But I am persuaded by what you've got to say. I think there's arguments for these hits, and since you three of you are strongly in favour, I'll go with that.
Okay, Councillor Oldham, thank you for that. On that basis, we would then proceed with option B, which is to process a lease and put it up for lease. So if agreed on that, we'll move on to section 10B, which is disposal and change of use at West Links, i.e. James's Cafe. And basically this is to extend the lease and slightly increase the area let to James. This is a successful and profitable business. It's popular with locals and tourists alike and is a real asset to Nairn, and I'm fully supportive of the proposal. That's my view. I'll open it up now. Councillor Oldham, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think I should always be declaring interest because I just love his ice cream. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Michael. I think this is a perfect example. We should be encouraging him. He's bringing good business into the town, providing a different sort of service. And one of the weaknesses of what he's got now is that in the winter, weather starts to close in, he does struggle a bit. And anything that helps him with that's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Councillor Jarvie?
It's an excellent business, as Paul's just said. The bubble cones are awesome, and it's good for the it is. And they do puppuccinos for the dog. So what's not to like? But maybe if he's got this bigger option, he can do a covered area, and that'll help boost the winter business, because a lot of locals are asking for things like a coffee in the winter, and everything else has shut for the season. So if to allow that kind of expansion would be good to support. But that a good point was made, I think, by the community councils about ensuring that if anything was to happen, because the 30-year period is quite long. I don't know how old the chap is. He's got quite a deceptive face, but 30 years is quite long. But yes, how old is he going to be in 30 years' time?
I think
he'll be on his knees. But just that it's all, if anything was to go wrong, it would revert to common good. That is protected. But I think Sarah's covered that.
Yes. Well, 25, 30 are standard leases. We're not doing anything that's exceptional there. And I'm led to believe it's a family business. So I don't wish to comment on the mortality of any resident. So we'll move on past that point, I think. Thank you, Councillor Jarvie. Positive in support. Councillor Fraser.
I don't think age has anything to do with it for this committee. We're going to stay away from there. Look at some of us. No, I have no objection. I think it'll be an asset to an improvement and an asset to the links in this town. So, yep, go for it. Thank you.
Okay, on that basis, we are supportive of the proposal, and we'll now move on to 10C, which is the consultation on potential future development of Sundowned lands. So if we could get, I think, here we go, teams. Okay, I'll hand over to, who am I handing over to?
It's myself, Chair.
Is it? Okay, sorry, Ms. Clark, I'll hand over to you. I was looking for Sarah. Okay.
Sarah's going to stay, and hopefully between the both of us we'll be able to pick up any questions that you have, members. But I would like to just give a short introduction to this particular report. So the paper in front of you introduces the consultation outcome on the potential future development of Sundown. The paper summarises the outcome of consultation, and based upon the feedback from the consultation presents a recommendation for members to consider on how to proceed. Members recognising the importance of this consultation and the decision to be taken, I would like to spend just a short time providing the background and summarising the findings from the two consultations. As you'll have already seen from the previous two items on the agenda, when considering any change of use, including sale or lease of a piece of common good land, a public consultation must be undertaken. So in November 2020, public consultation was launched to understand public views on the future development of the Sundowned lands. There were no offers from developers or plans to sell the land, but the need to understand public views on whether there should be development of in the future. Should there be a wish to proceed, the council would be in a position to do that. So as the paper sets out, the consultation was undertaken over 2 phases. The first phase was considered initially at committee in June 2021, with a follow-up paper presented to the September committee. At that time, it was felt there was a need for further period of consultation to better understand what the community may wish to see the Sundowned lands used for and to widen the response received from the community. The second phase consultation concluded in January 2022 and was supported by a short life reference group, and the work of this group is outlined in section 4. The representations received in respect of the second phase can be found at Appendix 1, along with the proposed responses to those representations. Section 5 of the report sets out a summary of the responses from the second phase of consultation, but what I would wish to highlight to you members is the combined analysis of responses from phase 1 and 2 of the consultation, which is set out in section 6. So there were 5 key themes identified from the analysis. The first was related to housing, and the representations received outlined that there was a strong view that the balance for housing contained within the current Sundowned development brief was wrong, and that there were alternative sites or locations that could be used for affordable or social housing. There was also a view that any development of housing should not be carried out on Sundowned until the A96 bypass is complete. The second theme carries on from that and relates to infrastructure. There was a clear view amongst many respondents that infrastructure related to the completion of the bypass was needed prior to any development of Sundowned taking place. There were also suggestions received about the opportunity for developing renewable energy projects on Sundowned itself. The third theme has been termed as Nairn Common Good, as a number of the representations highlighted the need for any use or disposal of Sundowned in the future should focus on the development of the Nairn Common Good Fund and considering a potential income stream for the common good. The fourth theme related to green space and reflects a really large number of representations received that were supportive of community use of Sundowned for green space projects, including community food growing, paths and tree planting, and building on the allotments that are already there. The final theme relates to those representations who felt that the development brief was no longer representative of the needs in Nairn and that a lot of changes had taken place since the original brief had been agreed, including the wider benefits of green space and well-being, particularly highlighted as a result of the pandemic, and also the development of housing at East Nairn. So the full analysis can be found at Appendix 3. Members, based upon the feedback received from the consultation, it's recommended not to proceed with the original proposal to dispose of Sundowned at this time. The recommendations do, however, build on the feedback received and propose 2 key things. The first, to take forward a feasibility study to explore the potential for green space community food growing projects. This would build on the feedback received and also on the wider community partnership priorities of growing and the use of outdoor space. And the second is related that further work should be undertaken to explore the use of Sundowned lands in the future as part of any area place plan for Nairn. And this would reflect the wider feedback that now is not the right time for the proposal of this sort to dispose, but should be considered alongside wider developments. So members, there are a number of recommendations as part of this report. The first 4 relate to the work of the short life reference group, the representations received as part of the second phase of consultations. Members, you're being asked to agree the responses to those representations that were received during the additional period of consultation and outlined at Appendix 1. And you're also being asked to approve the publication of Appendix 1 on the Council's website and to notify those who have been who have responded within the full consultation period where the contact details have been provided. You're asked to note the analysis and the key themes outlined at section 5.2. And in terms of the future use or development of Sundowned lands, it's outlined at recommendation 6. You're asked to agree not to proceed with the disposal of Sundowned lands at this time, but to agree the following 2 steps at A and outlined at B in the report. Members, myself and Sarah are very happy to answer any questions as part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clark. This is an excellent report. It's one where the consultation was effective and the resultant proposals accurately represent the views of the people consulted. The Ward Manager Lewis Hanna and Common Good Officer Sarah Murdoch are to be commended for the quality of their report. It's really an excellent piece of work. Consultation should be a process of constant improvement, and the inclusion of the reference group is an important step. And I therefore like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the reference group for their input. Time and effort is very much appreciated, and it's a step in the right direction. Therefore, I'd like to open it up, and I'll come to Councillor Oldham first for comments.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, generally, I have no great problem with this report. I do have some thoughts on how we could move forward with the land, but that's something to take to the area place plan when we start to develop that. I would welcome if Alison could expand a little on the community growing opportunities which have been talked about. Have any specifics been raised, or are we still at a high level on this?
Thanks, Councillor. You're testing my knowledge of, of the details in the consultation. As I understand it, there were some quite detailed proposals put forward in terms of general community growing schemes, but actually also, as is highlighted in the report itself, around community agriculture sides of things. We do have a food growing community food growing officer as part of the council, and I think her expertise in terms of taking some of these forward and discussing that with the community will be really quite crucial. So there's a number of different ideas in there, also including the expansion of the existing allotment provision, building on the Farmer Jones proposal at the development at the academy in terms of community orchard. So there's a number of key learning things that are already in place across Nairn that and key groups, I think, that are involved in green space development that will be really helpful in terms of taking this forward. And I think the proposal in the report very much cites that, in that we need that wider engagement and the involvement from the community to shape what that would actually be, but very much with the sense that this is community led, and just make, I suppose, although there are a number of different strands and a number of different suggestions as part of that, what would be best to take forward, and that's the sense of the feasibility study that would shape which of those makes best sense for that particular development going forward. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvie.
Yes, I agree with Chair. Excellent report and written in layman's terms. Thank you for that, so the public can understand it clearly. The feasibility study, that's a really good idea, and I would hope that there was as diverse a range of ages involved in that, so that it's an ongoing, like, family involvement would be really nice. Ages and abilities, and there's been great ideas, massive suggestions in the feedback for environmental things affecting carbon issues and the whole growth, and just brilliant ideas, and be great to support it to come to fruition in the place plans and get all these groups coming together and working together. Be a really positive thing for Nairn, I think. Community empowerment. Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jarvie. Councillor Fraser, Provost Fraser.
Yeah, but thank you. That correct title there. Yeah, let's get it right. Yeah, an excellent report. Really was good. And it's highlighted all the things I've wanted highlighted. 6.5, we talk of where was it now? Self-build plots, but actually we've tried self-build plots in the past in there, and it's been very slow uptakes. 6.6 very good, 6.7 excellent. Green energy project, we actually tried a green energy project some years ago, and it failed because we had nothing to connect to the green energy project to. You can't go directly to the grid, unfortunately, the green energy project. But right now, in world context, we need agricultural land, and the bottom line is, I really think at this moment it should just stay as agricultural land, the state of the world and the state of the country. We could certainly look at, as you say, have further continuing talks in relation to the small field next to the existing allotments for some green activities there. But I think the two larger fields should stay for agriculture use at the moment. and maybe in a few years' time, things will change. One of the big problems with housing is if we got rid of Airbnb, we have to be quite honest about this, we could probably house all our people that wanted housing. And people who are in Airbnb should really go to hotels and guest houses and bed and breakfasts. And that would relieve our housing problem. So I'm more than happy to accept the report in its entirety. And I would like to see agricultural use, the fields kept in agricultural use. And even though we're not necessarily making a lot of it, I think the agricultural use is more important in today's world right now at this moment in time. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. I think this has been a super process. It's been very, very good. And I think building on the success of this, where the report reflects the views of people, if sensible ideas come forward for use of certain of it for agricultural purposes, then and it gets broad-based support, then very happy to look at these type of developments. So on that basis, happy to agree not to proceed with the sale of Sundowned and to agree the recommendations. Okay, thank you.
Agreed. Okay.
Agreed, right. Okay, we're on to 10D, the monitoring statement. And it was all going so well. I'd have to say, when I look at this and I start to get down into it, and I've a more than working knowledge of a lot of the issues involved, but in the interests of transparency and good governance, we need more detail. There's too many general headings and we need these broken down to specifics. We actually need effectively management accounts. And if you look at this scale of the common good, what we've got in assets, and we've nearly £750,000 in the bank under management, we really need to get more detail. So obviously there'll be an increased cost for this, and happy for the common good to bear that. But I'd like to get your comments and see if you agree with me. But I think that to avoid having to come around and go round and round the doors on specific headings where some people might have no knowledge of these things, we need more detailed accounts, management accounts. So on that basis, before we get down into the actual accounts themselves, I'd like to get my fellow councillors' comments. Councillor Fraser.
I think more detail would help, yes. Certainly, I had a quick look and I've circled a couple of items, the parking, demolition link stores. That's more sort of operational side of it, but yeah, probably could do with a wee bit more detail. Instead of property costs, we could have costs for each individual property. Electricity costs, each individual. I mean, I don't even know how many electricity meters we have under the common good, along with water charges, rents, rates, insurance. They're just bulk sums. We could do with it. Yeah, we could do with an improvement in but we have to give our officials time. In all fairness, give them officials time to.
Absolutely, but
it's quite difficult to do these things. Okay, that's my take on it.
Well, okay, thank you. That's supportive. The information will be there. Yes, it will be additional work, and that will come at a cost. But I think that's something that we should pursue. However, I'll open up to Councillor Oldham.
Yes, Michael, I'd expressed similar views before this meeting. I think it's concerned me for a while that we don't have visibility down to item level. I don't necessarily think we need this at every meeting. In terms of, if you think about costs, this is maybe something we could look for maybe once a year, just so we have that drill down every so often, just so we have some perception of. It seems like, we have £60,000 coming in rent, but there's no detail here as to where that rent is coming from. And I hear rumours, and when you're at a point where you're hearing rumours around the town as what the figures are, I'd just like to see those figures. And we are trustees of the common good. We really should know those figures. So yes, I support what you're saying. Okay,
Councillor Jarvie.
Yes, wholeheartedly agree with our trio of gentlemen today that we do need, especially as you are all gentlemen, I'm the provost, but especially myself being a new councillor and Paul being a new councillor, not seeing it, to know where these properties are, and so that we can review rents. Are they fair rents? And also when there's been repairs done, so we know where the repairs are done and how cost effective these are. and where we can make savings. I mean, there's the electricity there. You know, can we make savings on that? You know, with the prices of fuel and everything and all these different charges. I think with the whole net zero thing, we need to consider the common good assets and how we can get funding to support that, to maybe insulate places more. But we won't know that until we know these exact properties. So maybe a thing on each property annually that maybe it requires a separate meeting or a separate thing, because there is sort of quite a lot of assets here, but just to keep track of what's going out in repairs and bills would be good, so we can hopefully improve that and make the common good more cost effective. So as the Councillor Green states, to if there's incurred costs, which there will be, we might well get those costs back and what we're able to save if we can look at exactly how things are laid out, which is going to benefit the common good and the people of Nairn, hopefully. That's the idea, just to give it proper scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvie. I think we'll take that as an agreed action point.
Michael, Kate Lackey has got a hand up.
Okay, Kate. Ms Lackey. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Oldham. I just wanted to say I think a separate discussion around about this is probably needed. We need to be conscious of what is an officer delegated level of operational responsibility versus what is scrutiny and oversight by elected members in a public forum. I do know that there will be some things which are commercially sensitive, which doesn't mean to say that as members you don't have an interest in understanding what those are, but certainly when it comes to the Inverness Common Good Fund, certain items are taken in pink because of that commercial confidentiality. So the complexity of this means I think that I completely appreciate and accept your desire to see improvements made. And that's something that we can take away, but I would suggest a separate discussion. There isn't really anything that we can commit to at this stage until we know exactly the sorts of things are that you're after wanting to know about, and the best forum in which those could be taken forward.
Okay, I appreciate that. There may well be commercial sensitivity regarding some issues, but a lot of this, the information's all there, and I think that there's a body of work to be done here for an agreement to be reached and what can be put into the public domain and what has to be held back. But I think going forward, we do need more information, and we'll be working towards that aim, but taking on the board the points that Ms Lackey has said. So if we're happy to agree with that, we can move on to the monitoring report. And I'm quite keen to deal with this in the various sections. If we go through 4.3, if we do it as income, and then we'll come on to expenditure, and then we'll come on to surpluses. I think that's a sensible way, the way the paper's been laid out. If we look at income, the first thing I'd like to comment on is the invitation to pay scheme, the parking charges. Firstly, could I just say I'm relieved that the monies from its introduction in 2021 have retrospectively been credited directly to the Nairn Common Good, so appreciative of that. Now, my view on this was initially a pilot scheme, and on that basis I'm more than happy that a review of the scheme is to be brought forward to a future Nairn Committee as outlined in section 4.4. My own feeling is the 50-50 split, I don't know, is this common practice, so getting a breakdown of that, which will be coming in the parking review, will be more than welcome. So then we can start to get down into the detail and see what's best for the Nairn Common Good. But on that basis, I'd like to open it up to my fellow councillors on 4.3 on the section regarding and relating to income. Councillor Jarvie, I'll come to you first. Have you any issues to raise on the parking and income, etc.?
Yes, and we asked this question before and they weren't sure regarding the parking meters. I would quite like to know, because it is quite a sizable income, and it is sort of digital, so there must be some kind of readout as to what parking meter is delivering what kind of return. And the difference that it's gone up now that the charges at the harbour for camper vans, because there are like 4 or 5 there, so a tenner I throw, that's quite a sizable amount that could come in. Be interesting to know how many are taking up the invitation to pay or not to pay.
A sensible approach, establish the facts and all these things, and we'll certainly be looking at these issues when the report comes back and the review ahead of hopefully the next Nairnshire Committee, but sooner rather than later. But again, it comes back to we'll get the information, detailed information in front of us, a breakdown of the figures, and then you can have a sensible discussion. So I'll come in my screen to Councillor Oldham.
I've got nothing to say on this one. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Provost Fraser.
Just if we get a breakdown later on, we can have a discussion on where we're going with the parking in the various sections as well, not just as our global figure. I mean to break down car park by car park and our future policies with these car parks. Other than that, I think that's the only thing I've got to comment on that.
Okay. Well, I think we're all agreed that the review is coming. We'll work together with officials with the information that's there, and we'll come back to a future committee with the review. So if we're okay with that, we'll move on to expenditure 4.4. And I'll go back to my earlier comments. More detailed information is required to give an accurate reflection on what's actually happening. Again, there's no point saying the same thing. We'll have these discussions with officials, and what can be put into the public domain, we will put into the public domain, and if there's something commercially sensitive, then we'll retain that. The same principle applies. So on that basis, on expenditure, Councillor Oldham, we've nothing. Councillor Fraser?
No, nothing on expenditure either, no.
Okay, Councillor Jarvie?
No, just the point I made earlier about trying to improve our expenditure, which will come with greater awareness on what we're actually spending it on where. But I realise that takes time. We need a kind of format, I think, of all our common goods so that we can clearly pick up on expenditure and repairs and costs and things. But otherwise, bye.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I just come back and say that all these will be under specific headings. The information is there. It's technically it's quite easy to do, but again, it's going to require work. And as I've said before, we'll come back to that. Okay, on that basis, we'll move on to the annual surpluses. Okay, we're spending 15,000 on links development and play parks 12,000. So I have a few comments to make, but I'll open this up first. Councillor Oldham, have you anything you wish to say? Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvie?
I believe that the phase 2 of Hamish is going ahead quite soon, so that's great. That'll be great to see. And with the whole James thing, the new extension, that'll be a fantastic area. Fantastic.
Okay. Councillor Fraser?
No, nothing on that one. That's fine. Not this time.
Okay, again, I'm not going to say the same things. We need to try and get a breakdown of the figures. 15,000. I'd like detail regarding what that's been spent on. However, I've got one area of concern, and this is the 5,000 for the removal of the Links store. Now, this seems an awful lot of money for effectively the demolition of a shed. Now, the common good will become more commercial and will become more commercial, more business orientated. So we'll be looking into this with the ward manager to see if this work has been carried. If not, we'll maybe look at, I don't know, putting it out to tender again, because this does seem to me 5,000, and I know the property very well, as does Councillor Fraser. It seems an awful lot of money to demolishing a shed. So we'll take that as an action point to look and see what we can actually do there. But apart from that, I have nothing more to say, and we move on to events, which is section 5.1. I would just give some background to this, and this is the award to the Nairn Book and Arts Festival. Our ward discretionary budget was cut from 26,000 to 60,000, and our award reflected that reduction. So while the Book and Arts expected 3,500, we were only able to support them pro rata to the value of 1,500. Now, there's 2 points I would make here, and we'll come to each award separately. Firstly, the word discretionary is not for revenue funding. It's meant to be a one-off award, so the Book and Arts should take that, must take that into account for next year. Secondly, if we'd not stepped in with £2,000 from the Common Good, the Book and Arts Festival, which has been a fabulous success for Nairn, would have been in real difficulty. And it's on that basis I'm happy to support the £2,000 payment. So I'd open this up. Councillor Oldham.
Yes, Michael, I actually have something to say about this. Yeah, I agree. The situation we're going to with the Book and Arts Festival was unfortunate. And the solution which Lewis has been proposing, which is this Common Goods Events Fund, I think is going to hopefully solve this problem in future years. Are we also talking about 5.2 at the moment, or did you want to consider that one separately?
We'll come on to Christmas. We'll come on to Christmas lights after that.
Okay, I'll sit on my hands now then, other than saying that yes, Book and Arts Festival deserves our support.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Jarvie.
Yes, I think we need to. It's sort of when people are asking for things in thousands and thousands of pounds, it is going to dwindle the budget, and maybe should try and help support them find funds elsewhere to kind of offset that. But it's maybe become habitual, and I think it has been paid out before.
Yes. Okay, I take the point. I think I've made that already about revenue funding, but no, points well made. Provost Fraser.
Yeah, it's an ongoing issue, unfortunately, and it's not just the Book and Arts; it's right throughout the Highlands. What do you do with successful events that need continuous funding, and where do you find the funding from? It ends up they've got to trawl around various funds to try and support these activities, and it can be hard going writing the requests that are required for these funds. We all know the Book and Art is a success, but if you go elsewhere to another fund, you've got to documentary justify the application for the fund, which can be quite difficult. As you say, it's an ongoing problem. Perhaps maybe as it's a Highland thing, perhaps we should start looking at a Highland central fund to fund ongoing projects. It's the only way I can put it, really.
Well, okay, but you're happy to support the award to the...
Oh, I'm happy to support that. I think it's essential we have this, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So we're all agreed on that, unanimous support. Now we come to the Christmas lights. It's a slightly different award. Now I know that in Inverness, and we cite precedent and example elsewhere, that the Inverness Common Good bear the cost of their common lights switch on. Indeed, I work very closely with the Inverness Common Good events manager, Jerry Reynolds, who has left several years ago, and we worked very closely, and we managed to, for Nairn, secure the polar bear for 2 years in a row. So the Common Good elsewhere, and as we cite Inverness as an example in many instances, they actually support this. So on that basis, I'm very supportive that the Common Good awards for the Christmas lights switch on. So I'll open that up. Councillor Jarvie.
You can't have Christmas without Santa. It's just a need. It's just a need. We can't be plunged into darkness, but it is expensive. 6,000 is a lot. Is that on lights, new lights, or is that the electricity, or what makes up the 6,000? I wonder.
It's
might be nice to know.
Well, as far as I'm aware, it's a whole range of costs. There's from road closure, there's from the actual sound equipment, which comes from limelights, which is expensive, and the attractions that we get in, plus the lights. There's a lot to it. Yes, 6,000 seems a lot, and we'll get a breakdown of those costs, and we'll look at these things each year. But in short notice, we need to support this, I think, this year, and then we can move further forward. Councillor Oldham.
Yeah, I can only agree that this is something which we should be supporting. I mean, certainly the the light in the high street always make the high street look like a more welcoming place. The depths of a Highland winter, and again, as we're going to be discussing in a minute, a better option for funding this going forward.
Yes, okay. Provost Fraser.
Yeah, I think it's something we're going to have a serious look at. The income and the money we have in the common good, and how we actually we haven't dispersed up until now from the fund, because it was never a really strong fund like Inverness. But I think it's something we're going to have to start looking at if we're going to become more commercially orientated in running this fund. So I'll approve it just this time anyway. No problem there. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's unanimous that we support the Christmas lights switch on. We now come to item 5.3, the Common Good Event Fund, which seems a sensible idea. And I'll hand over initially to Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I think this is going to be the solution to this going forward. I mean, we'll have to wait and see exactly what officers bring forward for us, but this does seem like the sensible way to cope with this in future years. So we do have some split between this and the Ward Discretionary Fund.
Okay. Yes, sensible point. Councillor Jarvie?
Yes, it's a good idea to have an allotted amount, and we sort of treat it, like judge it, each applicant on its merit, like we do for the Ward Discretionary as well. We discuss it, between us.
Provost Fraser?
No, that's fine. I'm fine. I'm happy with things at the moment. Thanks.
Okay. I think the Common Good Event Fund is a sensible idea, but we'll get community involvement and engagement, because I don't think we should be doing annual disbursements. The ward management is quite an effective way, and we'll look at the structure that they've got. And it's for us to decide how this fund actually works, and we will engage and consult and get, how should we say, hopefully universal agreement on how the fund is to work and what's the level of financial commitment we should make to it. Bearing in mind we've got nearly £750,000, I'm not advocating a massive fund, but it's just to put these things in perspective. So, okay, we'll move on to the final chapter, which is point 6, which is the investments. Now, I'm happy with the governments, but I think it would be good practice to maybe get somebody from the Investment Advisory Subcommittee to come to a future Nairnshire Committee just to give us the outlines of how this works and specifics, because we have got a lot of money tied up with them, and it would be nice if we could get a report from an officer involved in either the Pensions Committee or the Subcommittee. But on that basis, I'll open this up. Again, is there anybody? I'll just knock around the doors if there's anybody got points to make. Councillor Oldham.
Yeah, I was concerned by these figures. I mean, I am on the Pensions Committee, so we delve into this more deeply. I think you might be as well, Mike. I can't remember. But when you look at our performance related to benchmark, we're not doing well. And this is often seems the way we manage funds as opposed to passive tracking funds, and it's depressing that we still appear to be pursuing a policy of using managed funds for this, but that's discussion for the Pensions Committee, so I won't go any further on that now.
I'm not on the Pensions Committee, but it's interesting that the reason we went with this, whatever it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago, was that it was Bailey Gifford, I believe, and that they were getting remarkable returns over many, many years for the Inverness Common Good. So it's the same old argument, you can be unhappy in the short term, but longer term, these guys seem to be very, very good. So, but I take your point about the technical aspects. Councillor Jarvie, have you anything to say?
Yes, a detail of that, I agree that we should. Are all common goods investments done as a major thing, or has each area got its own portfolio? Or is there a Highland
Well, it's Inverness Common Good, and we piggybacked on the back of the Inverness Common Good, is my understanding of what we did many years back.
Tracking.
Well, Council Oldham would give us specifics on the. I know it's Bailey Gifford, and it was similar to what was happening in Inverness. We just joined their general fund. I'm not sure about how it's been broken down or what's happened. As said, the need for a report, a future committee would be beneficial, I think, to sort of have a discussion round about that. If you're satisfied with that, Councillor Jarvie, is there any other points you wish to make?
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Provost?
My understanding is our funds are a separate investment alongside the Inverness Common Good Fund. But yes, we need to get somebody through, I think, to give us a wee talk, because I'm looking at 6.2, and where it says the relative performance of the fund against the benchmark is due to the underweight position to the UK, a bias to growth areas, and an underweight position of the oil and gas sector, is really means nothing to me, unfortunately. So a good bit of explanation there would help. Okay, and I can't understand why if they're saying the oil and gas sector is down, whereas in fact we all know oil and gas is way up.
Okay. Okay, on that basis, I think that's covered that discussion, and committee's asked to agree the recommendations in 2 points 1 to 4. So we're happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. That brings me on to item 11, the minutes, which were approved by the council. Are we asked to propose these and second these? Sorry.
I'll propose.
Well, is that the?
Yeah, I'll propose. Yeah,
okay.
Through an record, yeah.
Okay. Have I a seconder for these minutes?
Yes, okay, seconder.
We're a bit of a weird situation because actually only one member was at that meeting.
Was it?
Okay, you need to have been there to have.
I think so, yeah. I mean, do we actually need to approve them, or are we just?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Let's have a look at
Are they not agreed by the main council? Maybe Kate or Alison could help us out here.
We're just noting them. It says item 11 says the.
Oh, just noting. Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, but for okay, that's fine. Okay. If there's any...
Councillor Green, yes. I think Ms Clark wants to say something.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Provost. Yes, the committee clerk, Lorraine, also had her hand up, and I think it was just to confirm precisely what Councillor Oldham had just said, is that the minutes are just for noting.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, I was too many screens in front of me. It was all going so well. Okay, Councillor Oldham, you've your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, while we're noting the minutes, I just wanted to note for the record and for members that if you look at item 6, we were talking much earlier about how we were not going to go on to committees because of the issues of conflict of interest. In fact, in item 6, that indeed happened because Councillor Heggie was sadly no longer with us, and Councillor Saggers had to declare an interest. So that only left 2 members, and therefore they were not quite and were unable to agree a decision. That, I believe, is what we are avoiding, hopefully, by the policy we're adopting.
Okay, thank you for that point of information. That's appreciated. Okay, is there anything else anybody wishes to raise, or is that it? If that's the case, I'd like to thank you all. Thank the officers for their support, and we'll catch up in due course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.